first independent intelligence agency. Refined but brutal. Civilized but merciless.
Welcome to the club.
Very clever.
How does it feel that this is finally coming out after a couple of years of delays?
Surreal and exciting and nerve-wracking because, you know, with the world, I hope cinemas are still open in 3 weeks.
I really enjoyed, as a history nerd, I loved how you weaved in the real life events into this heightened world of the Kingsman. When you were looking and you were creating the story, were there any events that you were like, oh, I'm not sure I should touch them because of significance, or did you just give yourself carte blanche?
I just thought we had to be true to history, and there were events I would have loved to change the order that they happened in because it would have made the script a lot easier to write. But they were history was the foundation of the film, number one, and then the history of the Kingsman Agency was number two, and we just had to we got them to meld eventually, but the rule was put Kingsman in where there was any gray areas or slight wink at some moments, but be true to history for the stuff that really happened.
When you started on this series, did you already think about how the Kingsman started, or was that very much just something that came about when you were like, well, we can explore this expand the series?
In the Secret Service, Harry does explain to Eggsy when they're going down the lift how and why and when Kingsman was founded. So we had the folklore of Kingsman already written. And then I watched a movie called The Man Who'd Be King, and I thought, you know what, that could be the man who became Kingsman. And we just went off and wrote the script.
Is there a particular historical event that you feel worked that suddenly made this movie work, as you were saying, when you were trying to fit stuff through?
I think the two things that there was three areas that I honed into immediately. One was the cousins of all, the king, the Kaiser, and the Tsar, and I found that fascinating that three cousins ended up having a family squabble, became a world war. I thought that was, interesting. Secondly, the way that Princip did, how the assassination attempt went wrong, and then Princip went off an assault and was drinking coffee in a cafe, and they took the wrong turn, had to reverse, and he literally just went, oh my God, and shot Ferdinand. That I couldn't believe really happened. And then the folklore of how Rasputin was poisoned, stabbed, drowned, and then eventually shot in the head with a Webley pistol, which they think was a British spy. I thought, boy, I've got to tell my version of that. So that were the main things, and then everything else was the building blocks.
And obviously there's a lot of history in between the end of this film and when we meet Eggsy and Harry Hart in the first Kingsman film. Could you see yourself returning to this kind of more period setting for Kingsman, or is it all?
Yeah, I think the two worlds can exist together, no problem. So we can do next year. We want to shoot Kingsman 3 or 4, depending on which way you want to describe it, which will be the conclusion of the Harry and the Eggsy story. And if people like this film, I'd love to get Rafe and Polly and Jaimin and everyone back and there's a lot of historical events we could go through, and as Harry said, what is it, 80 years later or 90 years later, my maths is terrible, literally says there's a reason why aristocrats develop weak chins. We need new blood. So I think it'll be great to see how did Kingsman get to a point where Harry's like, enough's enough. We've got to go back to what a Kingsman was all about.